Hello, my name is Sip Mendez. Welcome to Sip's Wood Chips. And yes, I know it's been a while since I've done a video, but I'm going to give it a try. And this is December 2020, just to let you know. And it's been kind of a sad year with the epidemics and all, but I hope everybody does have a good Christmas. I really do. A happy Christmas anyhow. And I've got many grandchildren now, 6 in total, but 2 of them wanted wood pens for Christmas. And I haven't done very many wood pens in a while, but I'm going to give it a try. And they picked the wood for me, and they actually bought this. Yeah, this looks like an awfully large pen blank. Yeah, it is. But what I think I can do is, instead of doing them from top to bottom this way, in which case they'd wind up with stripe pens, I want to do them at a little bit of an angle, so I'll get some nice little ovals on the pens instead. And we'll talk about that in a little while. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's been watching the videos. I really appreciate that, especially subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, click on subscribe. And if you want to be notified of each new video, click on the bell. And well, we need to do some planning first, so let's get started. So I'm going to put some masking tape on here to help me. It doesn't get too gluey on my blade. And now, that'll let me do it like that. Okay. I'm going to go over it with a Sharpie. Maybe, yeah, that's going to be better. And the other one will be about like that. Okay, so should be like that. There's my blanks, and you can see the banding in here, and you can see the stratifications. That looks pretty good. I got my blanks made and trimmed them down. I tried to square up the ends on them. Looks pretty good. Now, I looked through my box of bushings, and I don't find an envelope or a container that says which ones are the Tony twist pin bushings. But I did find this bushing, and I think this matches up to this. And I think the way the pin is made is this is a little higher than the bushing. So this might be the center bushing. And the ones on the ends, I believe, are just the normal ones that I use with most 7mm pins. So let me see if I can put this together and see if this is going to work out for me. And I'm going to use one long bushing, one blank. Now, on the blanks, there's some little pencil lines that tell me which end is which. At least I hope there is. Oh, like that. You got pencil lines here, pencil lines there. That's how you match them up. Those little pencil lines. Okay. So I'm going to put one bushing on here, one blank here. Put my center one. Put a blank on here. Put a long one. I'm going to put a washer. And then my little brass wheel. I'm going to take off my ring. And I'm going to put on my face shield. I'm going to go ahead and start at 1000 RPMs. 1000 RPM. And I'm going to start it with a 1/2 inch round nose scraper. I'm going to retighten this a little bit and check the tension on my there. It's still flat here, but you can see the oval shaped rings that it forms, and that's because I did it at an angle. This one still needs to go down a lot. It's still flat, but I'll keep going. And I'm going up to 1200 RPM. Well, let me stop. All right. So I'm almost down to where it should be. And you can see there's some little rings. I don't know if you can see them or not, really, of where the tool dug in a little bit more than others. Over here looks like I have a little vibration, a little chatter. And so I'm going to go over it with a skew chisel. This one's got a little bit of a curve in it. And still turning at about 1200. Alright, so that looks even better. I think I can start sanding it. We'll sand it a little bit with the camera on. And I'm going to start with some 150. And I'm going back down to 1000 RPM. It looks pretty good. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it or not. I couldn't find the exact bushings for this, and I think these are bushings from the original kit that came with this mandrel. And so I'm going to leave this one a little bit proud, and a little bit proud on the ends too. I've got some 220, so I'll go with 220. We'll go over it with some 320. And that should get rid of all the sanding marks. So the last part, I will sand it by hand with the grain, as if the grain were going back and forth this way, and help get rid of any circular rings cut by the sandpaper. It doesn't take very much. This is dyed wood. At least I think it is. And so it's got grain running in different directions. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to give it a coat of sanding sealer. I'm going to use my lacquer-based sanding sealer, and I usually brush this on carefully. That's to keep the drippings off my bed of my lathe. So I try not to use very much. What this does is it fills the grain, especially the side grain, and that way I don't have to use as much finish. When I use rub on poly, I won't have to give it as many coats to build it up. And we'll let that dry for about 30 minutes to an hour. The rest of this I do by hand, and I have a little bit of 0000 steel wool, and this has been hardening up for about an hour now, and so I'm just going to rub it and try to remove any excess buildup of the sanding sealer. And I don't use sandpaper because it just plugs up the sandpaper. And I will turn the steel wool often, and that usually seems to do a better job of it. I just rub back and forth across it and try to get rid of any excess cloggy sanding sealer. It's a bit gummy. And so I kind of buff it in the same direction as the grain would be. But the grain is really going both directions here. But I don't want any rings going this way to still show from the sanding or the turning cutting tools. So I want a nice smooth surface. I want it to feel flat. And that's about all it needs. It doesn't need very much. I'm going to give it a coat of wipe-on poly. And I usually apply it with my fingers because there's not much on there. If you're sensitive to petroleum products, then by all means use gloves. Did you see it change color? Right away it changes color, because you can see deeper into the grain of the wood. The light changes the way it reflects the light. And at this point the idea is to saturate it with plenty of polyurethane, then let it set up for a few minutes, and then wipe off the excess that might puddle on the surface. And so what I want is a a surface that's wet but doesn't show any clumps or dust or dirt. And I'll let that dry for a couple of hours at least. I gave it about 4 coats of polyurethane. Sanded about once in between with the, well, I didn't really sand it. I used steel wool, or sometimes they call it wire wool. And I think it's got a good shine to it, which should be fine. And there's my 2 pieces. Now, they're never ever exactly alike. So at center they're pretty good, pretty close. And this one is a little bit smaller than this one. So this will be for the cap, and this end will be for the tip. Alright. So this is my little gold tip. And I made this little piece of plastic here to hold the tip, so it won't damage it. I'm going to place this right on here. Bring down the ram and just press it all the way down. It doesn't need very much pressure. It looks good, very good. Now this is a little bit of a tricky part. This has a chrome part and a brass part, and I don't want to put it in too far, so I'm gonna push it in just to the top of the brass so that all the brass is down. Okay. Then I'm going to take the pin, the refill, and put it in here, and then I'm going to try it. So that's all the way back in, and that's all the way out. And it looks like it needs to go in another, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. There's also a little ring here that helps me gauge it. Don't want to push it too far. Okay. Try that again. And yes, that looks a lot better. Next we have the clip and the decorative ring, or ornamental ring. This is real easy because this just slips over. You push it all the way down. That's how easy it should be. Okay, and I'll set this over here out of the way. Now the clip is 2 parts. There's the clip itself and this little plug. And I'll turn this around, and I'm going to get it started by lining it up. And I'm going to line up the clip with these nice ovals. Well, these big ones right here. Line it up with those. Place it upside down. Pull down the ram. Get it nice and tight. Looks good. Line it up as best I can. And then just, this should do it. And there's my pen. I think that turned out pretty good. I think that turned out pretty good. Well, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you found the information useful. I always learn something. I hope you did. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if not, you can give me a thumbs down. That's okay too. And I'm always interested in your questions and comments. So leave me a comment in the space provided down there. And if you're not a subscriber, click on subscribe. And if you want to be notified of each new video, click on the bell. So until next time, take care.